that's a little bit easier to live, I guess, as a young family, but still near the ocean, which was important. So that's where I live. I work for a bank called Macquarie Bank here in Australia. That's fairly recent. I've been there about 3 months, so it's a new job, but it's going well, which is good. Thank goodness. I work from home about 3 days a week, and then I go into the office in Sydney 2 days a week. So the days that I go in it's quite a commute. It's about a 2-hour commute there and a 2-hour commute back.
That's long, mate. That's a long commute.
Yeah, it's large. So that's just one of the I guess that's just what you have to do if you choose to live further away. It's just one of the things that you have to, it's I guess the downside of having such a nice location to live. But that's okay. It's all part of it.
Do you think there are a lot of families who are doing what you're doing? Sydney families, or in big cities, maybe other cities as well, that they are moving somewhere else in the suburbs or even further? Is that common?
Yeah, definitely. So it started over COVID. I wonder if the same thing happened in Argentina. In Australia, at least, when we were in lockdown, I think, and everyone was working from home, there was a mass exodus from the capital cities because people realized, hang on a second, I can work from home from anywhere. So I may as well go and live kind of like we did, like have a different lifestyle, potentially pay less money, but still work the same job. So the Central Coast where I live, there is a massive influx, especially of young families. So people just like us over COVID. We moved, when did we move? We moved about a year ago now. So it was just after COVID. But to answer your question, the Central Coast is heaving with people now, and there's not enough infrastructure there to support us. So that's actually one of the problems. Childcare, for example, really hard to get, really hard to get into because there's so many young families that have just moved here.
Okay.
GPs, like going to see a doctor, there's not enough doctors per people, if that makes sense. So it's really hard to get no GPs are seeing new patients. So you really have to search to find a GP. Yeah.
I think you say, what is the GP for people who don't know?
Apologies. A general practitioner. I don't know, what would you guys call a GP? Like you're just your go-to doctor that you would go to see about.
Just a general doctor, I think we would say. Yeah.
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 Okay, there you go. Yeah, like just your doctor, you go to get your vaccinations and you get your prescriptions and the doctor that you, so that's I guess another downside. They've got to build out that, and there's traffic sometimes on roads that are only one lane each way that really should be more than that. So definitely a lot of people moved up here. So there's good things and bad things. It means there's lots of people just like us who came from Sydney, have young kids. So that's a good thing. In time, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to grow. If everyone is there, they're going to do something about it. It's Australia. Yeah. I mean, it is a pretty responsive, I'd say, country. We're always comparing it with South America. So anything that you are going to do is going to be better than what we get. That's why we say that it's Australian, kind of like the Mecca of
life. Do you guys think Australia is the Mecca? Wow.
Totally do, mate.
Okay. I've never been to South America, sadly, so I don't have anything to compare it to, at least that direct comparison. So you guys are the experts.
You should totally come. You should come visit.
I'd love to.
You have to. I think one of the questions that I had, having said that you moved from Sydney to the Central Coast, but before that, Oh, there's a question. You can read it because I'm very far away from the computer.
Do you have to pay for the doctor's appointment or is it public service? That's a good question. So, it depends. Is the there is Medicare, which is a national, like a public service, which at the very least will pay, or the government will pay a portion of pretty much everything that you do in a public hospital or with a public GP, which is great. Some GPs are entirely free. So they have like a system where they charge however much they want. And if they only charge what the government deems to be like an appropriate amount to charge you, then it's free for you. But if the doctor wants to charge more than that, which is their prerogative, then you pay the difference. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's subsidized, perhaps is the right word to use. But yeah, for example, I'm having
system, I guess. It's a hybrid system where if you want more, or if it's a specialist, you would pay more.
Exactly. Yes. So you can choose who you want to go to. And if you want to go to, like a specialist or a private hospital or a private person, that's fine, you'll pay. But if you're happy with what the public system offers you, then it's going to be free or heavily subsidized.
Yeah.
For example, I'm having a baby due in.
Congratulations, face to face. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's so crazy to think I've had a kid and I'm having another one since I saw you last. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, wild. But I'm going through the public system to have this kid. And so all of my appointments with midwives are all free. I don't pay a cent. And when the time comes to have a kid in hospital, it'll be entirely free. There will not be $1 will not leave my wallet, which is awesome. Yeah. It's great. Really amazing. Yeah. So I will apologize in advance. I get a little bit nauseous in the morning, so I've just got to eat a little. If anyone's on this call, you'll know what I'm referring to. It's sort of late in the pregnancy. It just happens in the mornings. I've just got to apologies. I'm just going to nibble on this.
Go for it. Eat. I think you have a question, so it's the perfect moment for you to eat. Go.
How do you manage with the kids when you deliver?
Yeah. When you have your baby.
How will you manage? Will you manage with a job?
With the job and when I have the baby? Was that the question?
Yeah.
With both of them? Okay. Yeah.
Is there anyone who will care the baby?
So when I have the second baby, who's a boy, and I've got a daughter at the moment, I can hear her crying literally in the kitchen right now. So it's a great question. We are still figuring it out. So we've got about 3 months to go, I think. So I don't know what we're going to do with her, to be honest. My parents
have 3 months.
I've got 3 months to think about it. Yeah, it would be easier if we had family who lived in the Central Coast with us, but my parents live in Sydney, so that's about like an hour and a half, 2 hours drive away. So I don't know, like if I go into labor in the middle of the night, labor a bit at home, we're going to try and time it so that I can call my parents with enough time for them to drive from Sydney and come and look after her before we go to the hospital.
Holy
but
shit.
I also, you what?
I said, holy shit. It was very classy of me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's my thinking exactly. I don't know any other solution. My parents are probably the best bet for people who'd be willing to drop everything and drive an hour and a half to come and look after their grandchild while I'm in labor. But I also don't want my parents there while I'm laboring. So we've kind of we've got a delicate balance to strike, which may not be possible. So
you have a lot to think about. You have a lot to
yeah.
think about. And you know what I was thinking about? You don't know Liv, but I know Liv, and she was a very sociable, social butterfly sort of being, which was great. And you moved to another city yet again. It's not your first time living in a different city than your original city. But how has it been having a social life in the Central Coast? Do you have people there that you knew from before? What's the situation?
Excellent question. Because I would say that's the number one thing I want to work on living up here. So we've got so many friends in Sydney, but it does make it hard when you have to drive an hour and a half or 2 hours to see your friends. So we have Sam, my husband, he has a couple of friends who live up here. So, and they've all got kids as well. So there's about 3 other families up here who we know already, which is good.
Yeah.
But I want like some friends of my own. I don't know. I want some of my people, I guess. And you're right, like I'm tired. I'm tired of making new friends. I've done it so many times. Which is good. At least the muscle is.
Making new friends. So we were going, yeah, I was saying you're tired of what they were just asking me about sort of like moving and how we met. And I said, I have no problem in changing, but one thing I don't regret of coming back here is that I had my core group of friends here. I didn't have to start relationships or friends. I had them. And I don't want any more. Some people tell me, well, do you want to make friends with X and X groups? And I'm like, I'm okay for now. If I need them, sure. But that's something that is quite a sign of the times, you know? You're not just easily jumping to friendships. You're not.
So different. In your mid-30s, I don't know how everyone else on the call feels, but it's so much easier when you're in your 20s and early 30s even. But friends are super important. I want local friends. People I grab a coffee with and invite over for dinner and that, which is hard at the moment. So that's the only thing I need to work on. That's the only thing I would like to improve about living here. Everything else I'm really happy with. But I think that's kind of like a long-term project, something I'll work on over the next coming years. It is very different with a young kid.
Yeah, they were saying that.
Both in a good way and a bad way. Everyone who has kids tells me that you make friends through your kids. So that's a good thing in that Evie, my daughter, will hopefully help me in this endeavor. But she also hinders me because she just takes up so much time and energy. And it's hard. It's hard to like want to do anything but fall asleep, especially when you're pregnant as well. So I'm tired.
It's quite hard for you to think about other activities. They are all moms. They are all moms. We know that.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So that helps again. You know, we all have that in common. We all have that exhaustion in common. But yeah, how to put it, like our weekends, to go to your routine question.
Yeah.
Our weekends are, sometimes we have social activities planned, sometimes, you know, with the people that we know up here, which is nice. But if it's a weekend where it's just us hanging out, honestly, our days are spent trying to expend as much of Evie's energy as possible while conserving as much of our energy as possible. If that makes sense. Take us somewhere she can run around. Yeah. And then where we can sit down. That's That's ideal. And then like sleeping when she sleeps, having a nap in the afternoon. Like, so my day's very different, Sophie, than it once was. It's very different. So yeah, and we're about to have another one. So
Yeah, I get that you're tired, my friend. I can understand it. I can understand it. One thing that I wanted to ask you, and for everyone who's listening, is the fact that you have spent time away and in other countries that are not Australia. Your parents are not from Australia, and I guess if you had to define Australian culture and what makes you Australian, you don't have to go deep because it's a very big question. But what would you say? What comes to your mind when I say Australian?
okay. We call ourselves the lucky country in Australia. That's a phrase we use often to describe Australia, and that I think is an apt description. We're very lucky. We have a lot of land for not a lot of people. We have beautiful weather most of the time. Really, really temperate climate. Everyone in Australia, I would say broadly, you know, it's a wealthy country. Like we have really good social net, social safety net, in terms of like about the medical system before. And I think something like our GDP is like decent, you know, like wages in Australia are probably higher than a lot of other places. It's also very expensive to live here. My point is that I think we're lucky. I don't know that Australians who haven't lived elsewhere understand, like truly understand how lucky we are.
Right.
And it's not, I say lucky deliberately. I don't think it's due to any merit. I don't think Australians have like worked hard for this sort of utopia. I think it's just luck. You know, an island nation who's sort of, we're very safe. So I think that's a double-edged sword. Everyone lives a good life here, but I don't think that they sometimes appreciate it, and sort of take it for granted. Maybe is a good way to put it. I think that the island nationness of Australia is also contributes to a little bit of like, what's the right word? Like xenophobia, I guess. And a little bit of, yeah, like, you know, cliquiness, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know the right word.
Feeling like a little bit of a feeling of superiority, like we are better than you.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah, yeah. I would say like the dark side of Australia. And now I'm trying to paint a full picture here, guys. I'm not saying that like Australia is bad and Australians are bad, but like there's definitely a pretty significant undercurrent of racism in Australia again that you would only really notice if you go to other countries and sort of have something to compare it to, I guess. I don't know if you noticed the same thing, Soph, but
I think
it's very
hard. I think I noticed what I've been told, but also our experience in other countries makes it that you recognize things faster because you feel all of the nuances of how people communicate and the advantages and privileges you have as a white female, as a person who speaks English, all of those things. If you have lived them, you see them.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. I think like most racism today, at least, it's not overt. Like it's very nuanced. So you kind of have to know what you're looking for. I'll give you an example. So I don't know, it's big in the news over here. I doubt it's big anywhere else. We've got a referendum coming up. I don't know if the Argentinian system is similar. A referendum is a pretty big deal in Australia. It only happens I think the last one was like 10 plus years ago. And it is every single person in the country must vote. And it's you have to vote yes or no to a question. And the important thing about referendum is that you are voting to change the constitution of Australia, which is why it's such a big deal and why it doesn't happen very often. So the topic that we're all voting on, I think it's in October, so it's coming up, is to add to the constitution and therefore to the way the government is structured. They call it the Indigenous voice. So it's basically a group of Indigenous Australians whom have been historically underrepresented and beaten down, I guess, to have a representation of them in Parliament, so that they can literally have a voice in our government. So it's just a group of Indigenous Australians who are voted to Parliament to speak on matters and to guide government on matters. Really, it's so innocuous, in my opinion, and so obvious that we should say yes. And at the moment, it's looking like Australia is going to vote no to that.
Really? I didn't expect that conclusion.
Really bad. I mean, if you ask me, we're getting into politics now, which might be
nothing is
dangerous.
off the table. We don't have a big following. It's not CNN.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Can you imagine?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but I think that's really sad. It's such an easy thing we can do to recognize Indigenous Australians who, like I said, we've like the same history here as the United States does with their Indigenous Americans. And I'm sure many countries, I'm sure Argentina has a similar history. Any colonized country.
They are nowhere. They are nowhere here. They have a very small representation, or it's very complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of problems too. Yeah. But we have so many problems that, speaking about Indigenous, and that's the problem with South America, some things are just left very low on the priority list, and it shouldn't be, because it's the whole population.
Yes.
But when we talk about people being killed because of gangs and all of that, that takes away all of the attention and all of the energy that an Argentinian has to fight for just their survival. So our problems are really in a list of priorities, and if you're not talking about safety and corrupt politicians, we don't care. Am I wrong?
No, I agree with you.
That's kind of corruption in politics.
Sorry, say that again.
What about corruption in politics? Do politicians are politicians corrupted there?
I think undoubtedly yes.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's some level of corruption in politics everywhere, but I think the level of corruption changes. So again, I don't know much about Argentina's political landscape, but it sounds like the corruption there might be more overt and serious than it is here. The kind of corruption here is so a politician or a political party will spend, that's in power, will spend more money in the electorates that it wants to win the next election in, if that makes sense. So it'll build a pool that all of the local people really, really want in this specific area, because they want to win that area's votes in the next election. So they'll and that's been proven. Like, it's not just them building a pool because it's nice. They do that pretty much categorically. Like, they'll only build and spend money in areas where either they want to win, or B, it's their followers already live, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of corruption.
different
Yes.
type of corruption.
What kind
Yeah.
of corruption is there in Argentina? Like, give me an I'm curious for an example.
It's impossible to just say a category. Everything is corrupt.
Yeah.
I guess it starts from buying votes to just saying we're going to spend 10 million on this project for road safety, and then the project was actually 4 million, so they just pocket the money. There's a lot of corruption in terms of public promises. Yes, in terms of anything that is related to infrastructure, I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Bridges, we're going to build this road and then there's no road. We're going to do this bridge, there's no bridge, or it's halfway and it's never finished. For example, we don't have a train, right? There's no train in Argentina, only in the capital. Well, in the capital and in the province where the capital is. And that's because there is a very big trade union supported by truck drivers, which doesn't allow any infrastructure to be built in the country, and oversimplifying things. Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't allow for any infrastructure to be built that would be a rival to what they do, which is transport anything around the country, which is a very big country. So everything that you want to transport in Argentina mainly goes through trucks. There is a train network, but it's very, very old, and there's no passenger network. There are a lot of little trade unions, not so little, managing our country. So in that sense, if you say you're going to bring a company is going to invest in Argentina for us to have a passenger train network, those people are going to cut the roads and go on strike for forever. So you won't be able to move our everything, our produce, everything that we export. You won't be able to move it because these people will be on strike, for example.
Yeah.
An example.
Yeah.
One of them. I don't even know what they're saying.
The people, sometimes the people are corrupt too. For example, the train, there are trains go to Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
And are very, very cheap.
Yeah.
And companies, the bus companies, buy all the tickets. Yes. Buy all the tickets
to prevent other people from getting on the train.
And the
Wow.
people say go by bus and are no go by train that is more cheaper.
That is cheaper. Yeah,
They buy all the tickets.
So the train is empty, for example. That's it.
But
That's another
when
example.
you go in the train, there are no people in the train.
It's empty.
Yeah.
For
example, it's not the corruption only for the politicians,
companies, everything is corrupt.
It's a style of
yeah, it's the way our country is run.
In some time.
Yeah. So what about corruption is our daily living. It's not even something we can explain. You know that like they speak about systemic racism. It's the same for us.
With corruption.
Yeah.
Definitely not that bad in Australia, for sure. It's like it's corruption that you have to look for. You kind of have to go, hang on a second. They spent money on this pool, do the maths, see where they wanted their vote. You know what I mean? You've got to really look for it. Yeah. No, it's not as overt.
It's true. What about I was thinking to round things up. I think there's something really beautiful about Australia, which is your wildlife. And I think most people who don't know anything about Australia would know about your wildlife. Has it changed now that you live in the Central Coast, or is it just the same than Sydney?
It's the same. It's the same. We went for a coastal walk last weekend, and a beautiful, lovely coastal walk. It's kind of like bushland right on the cliffs by the ocean. And we're walking, and Sam goes, "Oh, look at that." And I stop and look, and I'm like, "What am I looking at?" And then I hear this like slithering noise. And I'm like, "Oh no." I never actually saw it, but Sam was like, "It's a black snake. It's a red-bellied black snake, which is really poisonous." I was like, "Sam, why are we stopping? Let's run that way."
Right. That's one of the worst, isn't it? The black one.
A red-bellied black one. Yeah, there's the brown is worse, but a red-bellied black snake's not good. Don't want to be near those, that's for sure.
Oh,
But he was
no.
just slithering in the other direction. Sam just stopped, and I was like, "No, no, no, let's walk this way."
The other way.
Yeah. But it's early. It's early in the season for snakes. So snakes definitely a big thing in summer. Well, obviously, because they like to bake in the sun, and like you wouldn't walk through tall grass without a path in Australia in the summertime. That is don't do that. Bad idea. It's looking like no one ever told her that. She's like, did I ever walk through tall grass?
Mate, I lived in Tasmania. It was wild.
That's
I
true.
really-
That's true.
I don't know how it survived. But yeah, I think it was
Have you ever met with that demonian demon of
the Tasmanian devil. I saw one in Maria Island, which is a very remote island off the coast of Tasmania. We saw it, but we weren't supposed to see it because they are not very friendly. You know.
And they're endangered, I think. Like, that's quite impressive that you saw a Tasmanian devil. They're endangered. They're
Because
very rare.
We went to this island called Maria Island, where you cannot cross it and go by car. You can go on a ferry, and then everything you do in the island is by bike or obviously walking. So you rent the bike on the island. It's a great place to go, by the way. You see this animal called wombat, full of wombats, and there was a black snake as well. And we saw one of those little friends, the Tasmanian devil. But one of the guys took a picture, but it was at night, so it was hard to really see that it was a Tasmanian devil, but people said it was.
And you were walking at night.
That's why it was next to our tent. We had to go to bed. I mean, we had no choice.
You were very young.
It wasn't that long ago. I was just naive. I didn't know what was happening, and I was living the Australian way, which for me is very carefree. I don't know if it's very carefree for you being Australian, but I just didn't pay too much attention.
I see.
It did work a lot, but I didn't pay attention to anything.
You did work heaps. Hustler.
Yeah, I still do. Anyway, but I think we're going to conclude with some further questions if anyone has them, because they have been asking questions. Do you have any other questions for Liv? No? Comment? Do you have any questions for us? Apart from corruption.
You're all very good at English. I'm very impressed. I don't speak any other languages, so I am very impressed by anyone who speaks more than one. That's another Australian thing. Not a lot of, well, that's not true. There's a lot of immigrants who do come to Australia who would speak, obviously, more than one language. But if you're Australian born and raised, it's not often that you would learn or speak another language. Would you agree? So for you, like, amongst
we start studying English at school.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes.
And have you kept it up this whole time?
Yes, because I like it, but it does not come. We are a group that like to study to travel, and we need English to travel. It's true. Yeah, I think the need to communicate anywhere else
is the one driving my students and people
Motivation.
to learn English. And you don't need it. So obviously, I think it's very common for native English speakers to not learn another language because you don't have the need. And
Yes.
I don't think anyone does anything unless they have a need, right? I mean, perhaps sports, but we do sports because we want to be fit and have fun. I think there is a need for something there as well. That's another question I had, but I didn't write it, which was obviously Australia, or at least I knew this because I'm interested in that, but it's very well known for all the sports that people play and how sports oriented people are. Do you think that's the case, or is it just like a stereotype?
It's true. I mean, I think we perform, like if you take the Olympics, for example, which is a good litmus test for because it's got such a wide range of sports, people competing in team and individual and blah, blah, blah. We do pretty well in the Olympics comparative to our population size, which I think says that, Australia generally is pretty good at sports. But again, that comes from being a lucky country with money to fund. That's really all it is. It's just money. Money makes the world go round. So if you have money to spend on facilities and training and, all of the clothes that they wear and, and we have a decent climate as well. I think that helps. So, people there's like a culture of, getting outside and going for swims and going for walks. So you add that sort of like cultural element to money equals good at sports, I would say. I think that's fair.
Totally.
I mean, we're not very good at rugby at the moment, but that's okay. We won't talk about it.
I think the Wallabies won last week, but
To the All Blacks?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Interesting. But we lost the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before. So, like I said, rugby. We'll put rugby to the side for a second.
But I think
But we
because of the other sports, right? I only learned that when I moved to Australia, how big other sports are in comparison to what everybody thinks Australia is known for, which is rugby league, right?
Rugby league, yeah. Rugby league's massive.
Australian Open, the Grand Slam.
Yeah, but don't you think about what they have? They have, I would say, two types of rugby, and then you have Australian football, which is competing perhaps for the same players. Is that right?
Yep, definitely. So AFL, Australian football, what you just mentioned there is probably the most popular winter sport in Australia.
Yeah.
And then it goes rugby league.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to plug in the computer, but perhaps you can give them a brief and concrete explanation of those three sports, because I didn't know they existed. Not many people know about Australian football.
No,
it's not similar.
it's not similar.
No, so Australia, yeah, very different. I have a small version of the ball. It kind of looks like a rugby ball, but it's different. Australian Football League, AFL, started way back when cricket players, so cricket is really, really big in Australia in the summer, when cricket players wanted to stay fit over the winter. And so they invented this game, basically, which is played on cricket fields over the winter. So it's played in like a round field, and it's very chaotic. Like you can tell it's a bunch of men made it up. Basically, it's very very few rules, and generally the men and women who play it, the body type is same as like a basketballer, very, very, very tall and athletic, because you want to catch the ball. You're trying to compete to catch the ball a lot. So you want to be the tallest person in the group, basically. And it's basically catching the ball and kicking the ball. That's it, really. And then kicking it through goals at either end. So that's AFL. That's super, super, super popular. This is an AFL jumper. This is my AFL team. And then I don't play. Oh God, no.
You don't have
Not
much
nearly
time.
but I like to watch. It's fun to watch. And then rugby league, which I would say is the next popular, is a version of rugby union. But how to put it? So in rugby union, your team has the ball until you lose the ball, basically. Tackle, tackle, tackle. And if they strip the ball, it's the other team's ball. In rugby league, you only get 6 tackles, and then you have to hand the ball over to the other team. So basically you have to get as far up the field as you can in 6 tackles, and then you have to hand it over, and they get as far as they can in 6 tackles, and then that's how it works. So it's much quicker, much faster than rugby union. Is the best way to describe it. I don't know if I did that justice.
Yes, you did it very well, and it's very hard to understand rugby anyway. So
Okay. Yeah. But rugby,
you did a good job.
Okay. Phew. Okay. I think there's a question in the chat. Let's see.
Yes, there is a question in the chat. I cannot read it.
Okay. Before you knew Sophie, did you know or have you heard anything about Argentina or our culture? Good question. No is a short answer. I feel like I knew cliches. So, like I knew that Argentinians love to barbecue and eat meat in lots of different
That's true. Yeah,
so does Australia.
That's more.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I knew that. What else? I knew that it was probably a little bit more of an unstable economy than Australia.
True that.
Okay. I don't think I knew much about like instances of crime. I feel like Soph, you sort of gave me that insight. So I didn't know that it was, I actually still don't really know to what extent, like, would you consider Argentina dangerous to go to?
Right.
But that's about it. I think I knew that there was like some nice coastlines, some nice beaches. Is that true?
Yes.
Gosh, I hope.
It's
Yeah.
not only beaches, but mountains and skiing is very good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The Patagonia here, the Patagonia. You heard about the Patagonia?
Patagonia. Yep, I've heard of Patagonia. There you go. See, I did that as well.
Yeah,
but
I guess Patagonia lakes, mountains are much more impressive than our coastline.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
north is beautiful too. The north is beautiful too.
Yeah.
And the west, because we have falls. The falls, the waterfalls in Pioneer are very, very beautiful and famous. I know Niagara Falls, and it's not nothing to nothing. It's one of the wonders of the world. Yeah. The Iguazu Falls is one of the wonders of the world. And the north, Cuckoo, Salta, they are beautiful too. And in the south, we have lakes, we have Perito Moreno, glaciers. We have all landscapes are very beautiful in Argentina.
Yeah.
You need to know it. You need to come. You need to come and visit me.
Yeah, you're really selling it. I'd love to.
Hurry up, because I'm not going to have this house for long. I can host a family of 4. I can host a family of 4 for now.
The brood? Can you host the brood? Yeah. Okay, good.
Absolutely. I can take a pet if you want. I have a big garden, but it's not going to last for long. So you have to hurry up, man. You do.
I would love to. I would love to. Before we had kids, Sam and I agreed that our trip together would be traveling through South America. That's where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do. And then we had kids.
You will have time. You will have time to travel.
Your plans have changed.
Yeah.
We will. We'll get there. We will get there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
That's
yeah. I can't imagine Evie is, what is she now? 18 months. She's about a year and a half, maybe a bit older than that. I don't know if anyone else here has kids. And if you remember what a year and a half looks like, but having her on a long haul flight,
No.
bad.
Nightmare.
we are
So bad. So it's a bit of a deterrent.
grandmother here. I'm not, but
No, I'm your mother. I'm mother. I'm grandmother.
Okay.
But
Okay, so
they
you will know.
remember. They
but I
remember.
remember when I had children
Yes.
of the year two.
What was that?
I remember when my children were 2 years or
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's hard.
No.
I,
But I
play a lot with my son. And I have twins, for example. Yeah, yeah.
play
Twin brothers. Yes. I play with them since they have since they were 2 years old.
Oh, wow. How did that go?
You need to take. You need to be strong. Yes, and take balance. And your balance and Valentine? No, but valiente. Be brave. To be brave. Yeah, be brave. She said.
Be brave. Yeah.
One of the boys who is watching the chat, if you can say that, he
Yeah.
said, "Have Messi the best soccer player in the world?"
Yeah.
I guess that was something to say.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I did know that. I knew that. That I knew. So that's a good point.
That's a good
No,
point.
Argentina would absolutely kill Australia in soccer any day of the week. So
Well,
know
we
that.
did.
Well,
We didn't kill though. We didn't.
how are
kill.
you guys? Are you guys in the Women's World Cup at the moment? Are you still in?
The Women's
You guys
World Cup, I think we have we
lost.
been before?
We lost.
We lost. I am
We lost.
not, as you can see, I'm not following it, which is
I
bad.
don't
Well,
remember the other team, but we lost.
We lost, but are we still in or
No, we are
no more chances? We're out.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, Australia's still in.
Well, maybe
Okay.
maybe the Australian women's soccer team or football team is actually
Better.
better than men. I can see that happening.
Possibly. I mean, it's probably better than the men's Australian team for sure. And it's being hosted here in Australia, so
Oh.
they have the home crowd advantage, which makes a huge difference. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So that's
I'm really not following it at all, which is a shame. But I don't really support the women's team as much as I supported the men's national team, which is a shame, but it is the way it is.
yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay.
I think I'm only following it because it's in my time zone. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
like
right.
I'm posting, so it's like on the news and blah blah blah. So yeah.
Well, then we're gonna let you go. Do you have any questions for us?
No, it was a pleasure. It was so nice to meet you all.
Pleasure. Thank you for doing this. Hopefully
No
we can
worries.
chat on private time on another occasion.
I want to ask you some questions.
Ask us. Personally, not on camera, not on camera. Thank you.
Well, an end to our hordes of audiences. Yeah, sure. No,
Yeah, there are things that I can't disclose in front of my students.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, again, thank you for doing this.
Bye.
Bye, love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye, everyone.